Going to call the North Plains Planning Commission meeting for June the 10th to order at 7:17. Could you please rise to the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Get the roll call
Thank you. Chair King,
here.
Vice Chair Labonte,
Here.
Commissioner Howell, Commissioner Ken Odell,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Nunnenkamp.
Here.
Commissioner Parra is excused this evening, and your ex officio is Counselor Hagedorn. Here.
All right, thank you. Okay, item number 4 is public comment. This is the time for anyone in the audience or on the Zoom for making comments to the planning commission on planning commission business that is not on the agenda. Lori, if you could make sure that the emails that were received, even though they were basically for UGB concept plan, which was more of the workshop we just did, make sure those are part of public comment.
Yes, they'll be in the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there anyone wishing to speak on public comment? Come forward, please.
You want to go?
Come forward to a microphone, please.
Can I sit here?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Shelley Terralka, and I am a resident of Sunset Ridge.
You might want to turn on your microphone. It's on the top. It's a button.
Is it?
Yeah. Yep, and then there'll be a little bit of a timeline.
Okay. We start over. My name is,
And
my name is Shelley Terralka, and I'm a resident of Sunset Ridge. I was at the June 2nd public meeting, and we reviewed the concept that you saw tonight, and the public reaction is really overwhelmingly negative. So I was a little surprised that this was, well, number one is, I guess my thought was that the plan would have to be at the final phase before it got reviewed by the planning commission, which is not true, correct?
We're not answering questions, but once you're done, we'll
Okay.
respond to it.
All right, well, the consultant introduced the sessions as a visioning exercise. And the consultant also indicated that there would be an additional meeting that would occur before and probably in August. Many of us assumed that the public comments would be taken into consideration and adopted before another review. We feel that we should not be buttonholed into reviewing only 3 concept plans. A 4th option would be no development, and that should be included as an option. Also, today, I was informed this afternoon that the city is unable to find any records relating to the TGM grant amendment extending the project schedule through December 2026. Hence, I believe the TGM grant ends on June 18, 2026. And I assume staff will take this into consideration and discontinue spending any more time and city resources on any further activities related to the EGM UGB grant. And I'll, if you like, I can give you the copies of what was sent to me today.
You can submit them to Lori.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually appreciated hearing your comments. Reflected a lot of what was, what the residents said also, so thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Please come forward.
I'll pass it out, please.
Please state your name and physical address.
Darcy Schlotman. My address is 9760 Northwest 316th Place, Hillsborough. So I'm on the south side, is referred on the map. Majority of the households on the south side of the highway are in opposition to the North Plains UGB. It's on record that 6 out of 8 of us on 316th have strong feelings about it. At no point has anyone reached out or asked us our opinion of pulling us into the urban growth boundary. Or essentially rezoning us into industrial, which now looks like commercial. You've just chosen this by claiming it has to be included for any urban growth boundary expansion to take place. When we know that's not true, it just has to be looked at as stated earlier. But at previous meetings, I think that was really confusing for people because they said priority number 1 is the south side has to be taken in for any UGB to happen. Many of my neighbors have lived on that street for 40+ years. They had no clue of what was even happening, that it was being looked at again until just recently when I told them. You know, I don't feel like anybody's asked our wishes. There's been no communication other than a postcard, I think in 23, when I complained to Washington County because nobody had notified us. You know, I don't want to pick on you, but it's like, has anybody even driven down 316th? I'm curious if even the planners, because I've had to educate them on one of my neighbors who's still part of the airstrip and they shouldn't be included. You know, after the votes were, the voters turned down the previous urban growth boundary, like I said before, many of my neighbors had no idea that this was continuing. I'm curious if there's any landowners in North Plains that are also clueless that their properties may be included in the new map. Or if this is just only the south side that had lack of communication. One of my neighbors was, you know, asking me if we need to consult an attorney, and I don't really feel like we're at that point, but kind of feel like, you know, our hands are tied here. I am curious if the water line ran down Glencoe under the overpass at Glencoe and not down our street of 316. I'm wondering if we would even be considered. If that's really the main drive of looking at the south side, is that the water line goes down 316. And it definitely have my own conspiracy theories that, you know, the seed mill plays a big role in this, that property is extremely valuable if it has access to water. Right now it's for sale and, you know, no buyers because there's no water for them. I can't, you know, speak for everyone, but I moved to my location to escape Hillsborough. I didn't want to, you know, live somewhere where my kids could feel safe and go to school and be part of a small community. And I feel like we're kind of losing that feel. Like it's my community, even though I live across the highway. My kids went to school here. I go to King Torta weekly, sometimes twice a week. I just, you know, I'm obviously very opinionated about the south side, but looking at all that purple on the maps, it's just doesn't make sense for North Plains. And I just really hope that, you know, you guys will really listen to what the community is telling you and don't make us another Hillsborough. I mean, this is North Plains. That's why people moved here. They want to be part of something special. And I hope you guys continue to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify? Is there anyone online?
Yeah, yes. If you can unmute yourself.
I'm happy to unmute and turn a video on. Hopefully this works. I took my kids berry picking and lost track of time. My name is Emily Waldron, and I am a rural resident of North Plains. And I wanted to give comment. First of all, I want to thank the members of the committee who supported the idea of needing to work on our codes before we expand. I think that's really important. And then I also wanted to bring up in support of our neighbors to the south of 26 that we have been through this before. where we had the expansion that built what is now Sunset Ridge, and they had to consider the lands south of 26, and they were looked at, and the consideration was is that we don't want a town that's divided in half by a freeway. That's not how you build a town in a community that's close and that's connected. And so I would ask that you all take that same consideration like you have in the past when you're considering the south of 26. Listening to this evening's work session, I think there was a lot of good discussion at the end when everyone was giving opinions. Something I would like to bring up also for all of you to consider is just what working on the UGB has done in terms of growth, but also in terms of damage in our community. In our last election, we had, of all the people that showed up to vote and were eligible to vote, over 70% of them turned down a large expansion, which is a very clear number saying, no, we don't want this large growth. And all these public meetings, I keep seeing people showing up saying, no, we don't want this growth. And they keep not being listened to. And at this point, we're a community that's so divided over this UGB expansion. And wouldn't it make sense to take just 2 years or 3 years, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing, to spend time to work on the codes and to heal our community? We have neighbors against neighbors, literally within town and outside of town. I live in a house where my grandparents, who were involved members on the planning commission for years, including when Stuart King first came on, they were never considered outsiders. They were never considered anything but neighbors and part of our community. Yet I am considered an outsider and not a part of the community because of the divisions that have come up since this UGB expansion process. So I guess I would say thank you to those who suggested working on codes this evening first and getting our house in order that way. But I would also say maybe we should take time to get our community emotional house in order and our community relationship house in order. And once we're back together as the healthy community that we once were and that we can go back to being, that's when we can figure out who we are and how we want to grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom? All right. So we will move on then to item number 5 is approval of the minutes. Review and approval of the May 13th regular meeting minutes. Are there any changes or corrections? On page 6 of 12 of the package, in the 5th bullet down, I just noticed that second line, it says far west instead of far west. For just a minor correction, but other than that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the May 2026 minutes as amended.
Second. Been moved by Commissioner Levante, second by Commissioner Miller for approval, May 13th, 2026 minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Minutes are approved. All right, item number 6 is unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business?
Nothing not on the agenda from staff.
Okay. Then item number 7 is new business, and this is going to be a code update. So first of all, a question that was brought up from our workshop meeting was to talk about confusion on where we are with full code revision.
Thank you, Chair Pat. So council clearly deals with a lot of different things, and the mayor forgot. And the mayor forgot that I did brief them that the zoning code update would be a 3-phase process, with the first phase being driven by staff at no additional cost to the city or minimal cost. And so tonight, Rowan will be discussing the work done so far, on that effort. So, there will be later, bigger aspects of update that will involve funds, but right now, kind of the key priority things will be discussed tonight.
Okay, and while we're on that discussion too, some of the comments, public comments, there was concerns that the planning commission and the city council were, as they considered the concepts, were making some decisions, but this was just strictly a workshop, is that correct? And no decisions are being made on any concept at all?
Chair King, that is correct. So, what the joint work session heard tonight was simply largely what was presented at the community meeting. And at the community meeting last week, there was a lot of, everybody sat at tables and marked maps up about what they liked and didn't like and what they wanted to see and not see. Tonight was not reflective of any of that. The process is still gathering information, including everybody's input tonight. And modifications to recommended scenarios to consider will reflect all of that at a later date. So things are still just, here's the first set of preliminary alternatives and taking input, and then updates will happen later.
Okay, thank you. Just follow up to, had some concerns, that this information that we're gonna cover right now came to us about 11:30 today, so I, for one, have not had a chance to really look it over because I've got other things to do with my life. But if you will go ahead and proceed with your presentation, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair King. This is a very bland update to our code. Is mostly focused on legislative compliance, code enforcement, and definitions. And apologies for the late reception. As you know, we are working on a number of projects right now, and making sure that all of our areas are covered. The first thing you'll see in this packet is a update to a number of our definitions, falling primarily into terminology regarding floodplains. As you are aware, last summer we updated our floodplain standards to be compliant with new FEMA requirements. As part of that, a number of our definitions were updated within that subsection, but not in our general definitions. We have now proposed updates to make sure that the definitions are consistent across both subsections. The other main category of updates in the definitions is to do with housing. As you are aware, the Oregon legislature has been busy at work redefining housing and putting new requirements on local governments for how they proceed with housing applications. One way for us to add clarity is to be consistent with our definitions and the legislature's definition, so there's not any muddy waters between what the different classifications are. So you'll see a number of different definitions have been updated. None of them are substantially different from what was already in the code, but the terminology is now consistent with the legislature. There were a few changes to things like accessory structures to add clarity, live work townhouses to add clarity, and a number of different definitions were updated for terminology. The second subsection that was substantially updated, and this is still in draft form. Staff will continue to work on this until it is submitted to DLCD. And this is primarily legislative compliance with Senate Bill 4037 passed in the 2026 session. This is primarily to do with the noticing and processing of different land use applications, specifically when it comes to housing applications. You'll find under the application requirements and review procedures section that we have changed around how different applications are processed and classified. That's either to be more efficient with our processing. So applications maybe that were type 2 but really didn't meet the criteria to be type 2, they're actually type 1, have been reclassified. And then applications for housing have been taken out of the type 3 quasi judicial type and reclassified into the type 2 administrative type at the request of the Oregon Legislature via Senate Bill 4037. And that is a requirement. The procedures for noticing have been updated to be compliant with the legislature's requests. And the one major change is that the newspaper noticing requirement for quasi judicial hearings has been removed. It is no longer required by the legislature. And staff believes that there are much more effective ways to notice these than a newspaper, which is not regularly circulated to most North Plains households. We can use digital tools, physical postings around the city, and our mail notices to reach more people in a more time efficient and cost efficient manner than the newspaper noticing. The area which is of most concern to Planning Commission and staff's opinion is going to be the non-conforming uses section. This is an area that you requested we put at our highest priority due to its strictness on residential non-conforming uses. You'll find that non-conforming use and structure permits for residential properties have been changed to a type 1 process, so they can be handled administratively in the most time efficient manner and with less cost to our residents. And then other non-conforming uses have been changed to clear and objective criteria and have been moved to the administrative pathway. This code section has largely maintained the same structure it had, with additional code language borrowed from Hillsborough, Newburgh, and Sherwood, all of which have more comprehensive sections than us, and we were able to reference and lean on for code language. The last section, which is the most substantial, was drafted by our legal representation and concerns code enforcement. This section represents an entire replacement of the previous 155999 section, which was penalties for non-compliance with the zoning and development ordinance. This new section is comprehensive in laying out who the code enforcement official for the city is, how complaints may be received or initiated, how those complaints will be investigated, the pathways for voluntary compliance, pathways for citations and prosecution of code enforcement, and the ways to remediate those code violations, including citations and liens against property. All of this was drafted by our legal representation as I said, comprehensive, and staff has full confidence in its ability to empower the city to properly enforce its zoning and development ordinances. With that said, I would say that the area that staff would be most interested in hearing your thoughts, opinions, or additions is the non-conforming uses at this time. This is package 1.1. You can expect more packages to be delivered in summer, fall, and winter as we go through to make sure we are compliant with all of the legislature. But as we are a small staff, it will be a phased project, and then we will be looking at consultants for the larger work of doing design review, housing, zoning district, and rewrites or reimaginations in a more comprehensive manner.
Let me ask you, is this something that we are planning on doing workshops for? Or is this strictly kind of state-driven requirements that sort of we're just going to accept and move forward with?
The majority of the content here is legislative compliance, with the exception of the non-conforming uses and structures, which we really would like to hear about your opinions on, and code enforcement. There is, the ability for Planning Commission to provide opinion and change that, but as I said, that was comprehensively drafted by our legal representation. I would not suggest or really recommend making substantial changes to that code or that proposed code.
Can you just describe briefly the type 1 that the non-conforming would now be under?
Sorry, could you?
Could you just describe the type 1 proposed submittal that the non-conforming request would be
Yeah.
under, as it pertains to, from a resident's perspective, what would they need?
So from a resident's perspective, for a type 1 application, they'll fill out a single form. They will then be reviewed, when they fill out that form, they'll see that they will need to submit a site plan to show that they meet the requirements of the subchapter, which as proposed are quite minimal. And then they will also need to check in with our service providers. Those are gonna be Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue to make sure that they're compliant with the Uniform Fire Code, and Clean Water Services to make sure that they're compliant with storm and sanitary codes. After they complete that and pay the application fee, it'll come to us for processing. We typically will process type 1 applications within 2 to 4 weeks maximum.
Okay. What's the fee?
Sorry?
What's the fee?
There's no established fee at this time, because this is going to be a new typology that is not currently, we can't put it into the current fee schedule until it is adopted.
To me, that makes sense, the change makes sense. I think it's consistent with what residents have asked for.
So what are you looking for from the planning commission?
Any comments, suggestions, likes or dislikes about the proposed code specifically pertaining to non-conforming use more than any of the legislative compliance elements?
Commissioner Levante?
Thank you. Well, first of all, it's really hard to comment on something that, you know, you don't really get time to sit and digest. I guess I was under the assumption that the code was going to be sent to the subcommittee and we were going to have the opportunity to review code. And then we were coming back as a workshop to discuss code, and then we would have it on the actual agenda. I'm confused by all this. I don't have any answers. I don't have any suggestions for you this evening because of the lack of time for us.
I would suggest that if we would like to go through a subcommittee process, we're more than welcome to. But the timeline will be drastically extended. I was under the impression that urgency was to pass something this summer.
The urgency is there, but we've been discussing this for so long. And we've specifically been talking about the subcommittee meeting, and could you please forward us the information? As a subcommittee, I didn't get anything. I don't know if the other members did. But so what I'm trying to get at is it's hard for us to provide recommendation or any additions on these without having the proper time to review them.
If I might, there seems to be a cross stream over the purpose of subcommittees. In the interest of avoiding a quorum of people discussing something coming before planning commission, staff-driven recommendations should come before the whole body so that you avoid a smaller group and then a quorum discussing this. If you as a subcommittee want to work on something original and bring it to the full body, you can do that. But if we bring something, if we're doing new with legal review information to bring to you, I would strongly recommend it come before the whole body first.
That's never been told to us. The subcommittee's been meeting, talking about code revisions. So
Well, originally at the meeting I was at where that was discussed, it was about the subcommittee working on original content rather than staff with legal assistance bringing it to you.
And I think that's one of the things that needs to be pointed out, is that these state-driven requirements are not something that planning commission is going to have the experience or knowledge with, where staff will. So I see that as driven from staff, or code enforcement is not something that we do. So I see that as staff-driven or attorney-driven. But there are the codes that we have talked about, which is basically the whole base of the codes and the updates that need to be applied for the like neighborhood community zones and the design reviews and things that I think our subcommittee was willing to work on and should at least have an opportunity if that's afforded.
Yes, I would suggest that as we move forward with substantive content updates such as zoning districts, design review standards, which will be completed by a consultant most likely, that they would work with the planning commission in stages and phases to understand the community's desires for those substantive content updates. As I mentioned, this was focused on legislative compliance and one urgent issue which has come up over the past year, to be updated really for, processing needs.
Yeah, I guess my confusion is. The reason we talked about non-conforming use was for one instance is over the solar panel thing. And the garage being further forward than it's supposed to be, and so those people don't get to have solar panels because their homes built in 1995, and the rules have changed since then, so it's non-conforming. So how does this affect that?
So if I may clarify, that application was denied because the applicant would have needed to obtain a non-conforming use permit or non-conforming structure permit, which they were fully capable of doing, but due to their internal timeline, not the city's timeline, they opted not to proceed. And so because there was a disconnect between their investment level and their timeline and our fees and our timeline, they opted not to proceed. And so this code update aims to reduce the city's timeline, to reduce the fee. A type 3 hearing is a substantial fee ranging from $3,000 to $6,000 depending on the application type. A type 1 is typically under $1,000, most are under $500.
That's why I'm asking this. So it was like $1,800 to do that, and there was no guarantee you were gonna get approval. So that's why I'm asking. That changes that situation. So that's what we're talking, that's just one instance of the non-conforming, so that's what I'm asking.
Yep, so under the proposed code, it is clear and objective for residential and much more permissive. So it would be unlikely that for something like a solar panel or residential addition that someone would apply and not receive the permit. In most cases, unless they looked at the requirements or their representative look at the requirements and opted not to submit something that was compliant with those, they would have to be willfully non-compliant with the requirements in order for us to issue a non-permit on that.
So are there any other planning commission comments?
So, legal, I assume the lawyer worked with you guys on this then? Did 3J review this also?
This was not sent to 3J.
Should
This is internal.
it be, because they deal with this a lot also.
They do, I've worked with 3J on this, because this is primarily legislative compliance. There's question about whether the expense of sending this to a consultant when we've already spent legal budget to review it, would be necessary.
My opinion, I thought that maybe you would have gone to 3J to begin with though, since they were, this is their thing.
So, I mean, I would just reiterate what Roman said, that, that 3J's approach to it is one way to do it, but for these topics here, the things that will run into legal issues, it's been a city attorney cooperation driven. When you get into different uses and that sort of thing, that's when a consultant will help, and consistent with the process that we had all discussed, the first phase is really working on these particular topics that are legal heavy. And then getting into the uses and things would be with a planning consultant and spending money on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Levante.
Can I'm just briefly reading these, under the residential non-conforming uses and structures, on the second page of it, it talks about the structure If the structure was permitted and compliant upon construction, satisfactory documentation compliance may include, but not limited to, the following. I'm trying to understand how some of these listed here could prove that a structure was lawfully built. Because I can tell you without a doubt, with this new legislative change for the rural RFPD, fire department, fire patrol changes, we have found that were not on the tax roll, homes that were illegally built without permits. So just because it's gonna be on the tax roll next year for value, doesn't mean it's lawfully permitted, but you have tax records on here.
That is why the
I'm
language
sure
says
there's probably-
may include. So.
So they can show you their tax bill that, yep, I'm getting taxed on it, so you're gonna just, okay, it's a lawfully established dwelling.
So staff would be in charge of determining if a structure is legally built. The applicant would submit the documentation that they believed showed that, which may include tax records as one of those documents. But it is ultimately staff, as the representative of the city, their responsibility to verify if that is appropriate documentation. In most cases, in almost all cases, tax records alone would not be sufficient. But they could be used in concert with other documentation. The list is there to provide the applicant options to combine different information sources, and especially for much older properties, if we're talking about non-conforming use from, say, the 80s or 70s, that they could use information in concert to show that they have a legally non-conforming use or structure. Just like dated aerial photos alone would not be sufficient, but they may be part of the evidence.
I just show her sketches about that. So do we have for your purposes for determining, not only legal lots of record, but also lawfully established dwellings, do you have like a cheat sheet, if you will, that says if it was constructed by this day, it has, it went through this type of approval, or, records at the city versus just at the county?
So land use records in North Plains are sort of chunked in phases of how they're documented. The documentation is much better after the 2000s than before. But we do have ways to look up on most land use approvals dating back at least a few decades. Once we get back even further, it becomes more complicated, and that's where we start having to go to the county and looking at their records. But we do have access to those, and we can work with the county to obtain more records as needed. It's not something we do often, but it is something that we can do on an as needed basis.
It seems like that would take more weight than anything else in this list.
But once again, we're mostly putting the burden on the applicant to provide records for their property rather than searching for those records ourselves.
So what's our next step on the code update?
At this point, staff will continue to refine the code based on any feedback we get here and based on any additional feedback we get from our legal representation. We will then file the official zoning ordinance amendment with the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And that will start the application process. We would then plan to come to Planning Commission for a first public hearing in August. At which time you'll hold the public hearing. You can make any modifications you so desire at that time. Extend the public hearing if so desired as well. Once that public hearing is closed and you make a decision to recommend with amendments or not recommend the application, it will go to City Council. That would likely occur in September. If you held 2 hearings, it would then be in October. And City Council would hold their hearing to ultimately adopt with amendments or not adopt that code package.
Is there a timeline on state requirement?
There are a number of requirements which will take place on July first. We will comply with those via reference to the Oregon legislature or the bills or the ORSs. There are also a number which will kick in on January 1, 2027. And then there are a few that will kick in at later dates varying from mid-year in 2027 to January 1 in 2028. Of course, the closer we get to the next legislative session, the more we can expect that we'll have additional deadlines piled on. So we would like to get through our backlog of 2024, 25, and 26 bills as soon as possible.
Okay, so you're suggesting a August public hearing?
That is staff's suggestion.
Yeah, okay, so in our July meeting, then you're gonna bring this back for, is that the plan?
I will not be present, but because this will need to be filed before I am out of the office for an extended period of time. You will have access to the version of the code that is provided to DLCD. And you can begin to review it at that time. As long as any suggested changes from the planning commission are not substantial, then we can incorporate those.
So will there be a presentation at the July meeting?
I will work with other staff to make sure that there is coverage for the July meeting and that is presented at that meeting.
And I'm assuming that since we have our short time of being able to review this, that any of the commissioners could make comments and submit them to you.
Absolutely. I welcome any feedback between now and I begin my absence on June 22nd. So if within the next week you have any feedback, please do send it. I'll do my best to get it incorporated in that time.
All right, thank you. Is there anything else on this code updates? Hearing none, we will move on to land use application and the city report or city project monthly report. They're in your packet. Any questions on these? I see there's a type 2 design review that was received on May the 22nd. Does that be?
That is in completeness review at the moment, and is all signs looking positive right now. The applicant has been very communicative with staff, and we expect this to be a rather regular type 2 application.
Okay, and was that something you're planning on covering in staff updates or?
That application, because it's still in completeness review, there is not any substantial update.
Okay, so we don't know if it's coming to, when it might be coming to the planning commission, I guess is what.
Because it is type 2 application, it will not be coming to the
Not
planning
come.
commission.
Okay, okay, all right, thank you. All right, any other questions, comments on the land use applications? Or the, or on B, the planning and city project monthly update report? Hearing none, okay. We'll move on to item number 9 is the planning commission comments. A is the UGB PAC meeting updates. There was, as the representative for the planning commission, there was not another meeting. There was the city community meeting that basically was presented the same information that we were presented for our joint work session. So I don't have any further update on that. While I was at the ice cream social, Councilor Weber approached me and asked about property at 10120 Northwest Glencoe Road, which is a property that used to be an insurance company, and said that there's development work going on ground parking area or something. And I think I believe he said he brought it to your attention. Could you?
Yes, I was informed of the activity, reached out to the previous owner and discovered that the property had been sold. I'm in the process of reaching out to the new owner.
Okay. So
That's ongoing.
Okay, so we don't know what they're doing, but we're checking into it.
I mean, do they need permit or anything just to resurface the parking lot?
They're grading on that, so from what I understood.
There appears to potentially be an increase in impervious surfaces, which would be development work.
Yeah. Can develop service provider letters and all that fun stuff, grading permits, yeah. Okay, so any other planning commission comment? Commissioner Labonte.
I don't know if you are on the email, the Washington County email for CPO, but it looks like they're gonna have, CPO, they're changing, the county's changing the way they're doing it. They're gonna have a listening session, June 16th. Or excuse me, they're having an in-person listening session, June 16th at Washington County Street Conference Center. That's where the parking structure is downtown. And then they're having a virtual one July 15th. From 6 to 7 PM, and I'm assuming they'll have their links on that. And then I have a couple questions. First of all, are these new chairs?
They've been in the way back,
Can I
getting buried.
request a different one? My feet don't touch the ground and my legs are sore.
Oh, no, yeah, everybody else loves them because they're nice and cushy, but
Yeah, until your legs go to sleep.
footstools.
Yeah, that's what I need, a footstool under here. And then my next question, only because I'm, in my job, I'm processing annexations now. We were discussing Banks urban renewal and it got me thinking about North Plains urban renewal. Because it expires this year. And I was just curious because I haven't seen anything filed with the county.
The Urban Renewal Agency did undergo a process to remove the expiration date on the plan, which I believe was adopted by.
Yeah.
When?
Right, so, very observant. Yeah, the sunset date was removed by text amendment by the Urban Renewal Agency Board in March. And then City Council officially ratified that text amendment to remove it in April by a resolution of its own. So it's just been stricken as a text amendment.
Would it be possible to actually link something on the URA site? Because there's, the only thing that's there is the original document that creates the urban renewal with the boundary and discussion of the sunset date as well as the amount for the amount allotment for the indebtedness.
Yeah, the maximum that is, yeah, so actually, there are gonna be some updates here pretty soon, pretty significant moves to the page. The URA board is going through a 5-year strategic planning process with a consultant. So there are gonna be a lot of updates to include that, to include an update to the maximum indebtedness of the district that they did actually discuss at the last meeting. And then at the next meeting on July 6th, they're going to kind of see what the resources are going to be for 5 years, the cash flow for the district. And then spend much of the meeting basically identifying and prioritizing the new projects to be taken up by the plan. So there'll be a bunch of updates along with that on the website.
Sorry, for some reason, we always get notification of the county when there's amendments to urban renewals. So you don't have to do that in this case?
In this case, the city attorney agreed with the original consultant, Elaine Howard, that this was strictly a text amendment. The sunset date was an optional, just text provision in the plan. There's no change in boundary, there's no change in maximum indebtedness, there's no change in projects yet. So this doesn't even rise to the level of minor amendment. It was simply a text amendment. When, if anything that comes out of the strategic plan process update rises to a minor or certainly a significant, then that's when that would happen.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, no.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move move on to item number 10, is city council comments. Councilor Hagedorn.
Once the microphone did not trick me. First thing first is we're just at a courtesy of everyone's time tonight. I'll try and keep this light touch. I want to thank you guys for the hard work that you do. I'm impressed by reviewing this UGB plan that we reviewed at 6 o'clock. I always personally struggle translating visually maps to real life, and you guys really have to kind of have your foot in the current state and future state on maps and in real life. And I just want to commend you guys for your ability to think outside the box and colorful too. So thank you. From a council update perspective, last session, we did a lot of housekeeping activities. I won't bore you guys with the details, but forward looking, we are looking at picking somebody to replace Councilor Redding's position next meeting. And then, of course, a really important event that I really want to place emphasis on is we have the OPP Think Out Loud tomorrow night. And I think that's an opportunity for us all to listen, learn to our residents and feedback, and really anchor ourselves in kind of the current sentiment. So I want to remind everybody that there too. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Any comments or concerns for city council? Hearing none, thank you for being here. All right. Item 11 is staff comments.
Thank you, Chair King. I'll keep this brief as well. Since my last meeting with you all, since I wasn't here for our May meeting, I was at a conference out of town. I have been fortunate enough to attend the Oregon Brownfields Conference and with respect to our EPA Brownfields Cleanup Grant, a great opportunity to connect with some of our regional and state partners on the Brownfields program and the future of leveraging those dollars for development in North Plains, as well as our Travel Oregon Tourism Boot Camp, which is a great opportunity for us to connect with our regional destination management organization, Explore Tualatin Valley, and see how we can use those tourism aspects and dollars to support development here in North Plains as well. In addition, city staff has seen our annual uptick in solar panel and air conditioning permit requests as summer hot weather rolls in. We expect those numbers to increase throughout the summer. Current planning applications have been low, as is been the trend over the last few months, with only the one type 2 application in at the moment. Well, we do have an application most likely coming in for a type 1 temporary to allow Richards Ridge property to host some market activities during the evening. Other than that, staff has been working on these code updates and primarily making sure that we are able to address all of the legislative compliance that needs to be addressed, as well as creating crosswalks for referencing the ORSs for certain legislative matters, which maybe are not appropriate to be adopted into code, but still need to be referenced nonetheless. So lots of behind the scenes work, making sure that the city is in good standing with the state at this time. And I will end my comments there.
Okay, any questions of staff comment? Hearing none. If there is no other commission business, our next regular meeting will be July 8th here, 6 o'clock, unless otherwise. And with that, we are adjourned.